His sacrifice was perfect and eternal. There is no need at the present time for a Passover sacrifice. The shank bone remains to remind us of the sacrificial lamb, the perfect Lamb of God. So in addition to it, since the temple's been destroyed, they've not been able to do the sacrifice. If you do watch the news, traditional groups, some more radical groups of Judaism have been waiting for to be able to rebuild the temple. One of the things they needed was a red heifer without blemish, a perfect lamb. Well, we can thank the lovely people of Texas. For about 10 years now, they've been breeding them, and they actually offer sacrifices on an adjoining mountain. Doesn't count as the Passover sacrifice, but they do it, and you can also find pictures of the perfect. The red heifer, and now also the lambs that are there. They were actually growing them all. They're actually also making plans right now. There is a group that's actually rebuilt all of the temple walls. They're sitting inside of a storage waiting for a more political opportune time to put them up. And they do, and actually the Sanhedrin, the court Jesus was convicted in, has been reformed in the last 7-8 years. In fact, there's a Sanhedrin court here in Los Angeles as well, where Jews can take other Jews to court. Let us now bless his name as we lift the second cup of deliverance. Some of you may have cheated and drank it already, I know. You thought I forgot. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who creates the fruit of the vine. Now you may drink. If I can get readers 8, 9, 10, and 11 up here right now. This next part, DAYENU, we're getting close to the meal here real quick. DAYENU, will you all be thankful for that? DAYENU means it would have been enough. This is an important concept that I think really explains and ties grace together for us. These guys are going to read it and explain it a little bit. As they read it, you'll kind of get a gist of it, and I'll explain it further afterwards. But they will celebrate your abundant goodness and joyfully sing of your righteousness. Psalm 145:7. As it was for the redeemed Israelites, so we too rejoice in the abundant goodness of the Lord, and we praise his great love as we say, DAYENU. It would have been enough.
If the Lord had merely rescued us, but had not judged the Egyptians,
DAYENU, it would have been enough. If he had only brought their gods to shame, but had not parted the Red Sea,
DAYENU, it would have been enough. If he had only drowned our enemies, but had not fed us with manna.
DAYENU, it would have been enough. If he had only led us to the desert, but had not given us his commandments.
If he had only given us his commandments, but not the promised land of Israel.
DAYENU, it would have been enough. And yet still, God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. We all say DAYENU. So the concept of DAYENU, it would have been enough. When you get down and you get frustrated in life, and a lot of us have gone through tough times with the economy over the last few years, our lives or whatnot. But we sometimes have to remind ourselves and walk ourselves through this and remember. And for me, it's always important during this time. And I want to personalize this. And so for me, it's if God would not have rescued me from Egypt, it would have been enough. If God would have rescued me from Egypt, but did not part the Red Sea, it would have been enough. If he would have parted the Red Sea, but not destroyed my enemies in the Red Sea, it would have been enough. If he'd have brought me through the Red Sea, but not given me the promised land, it would have been enough. If he'd have brought me to the promised land, but did not send his Messiah, it would have been enough. If he'd have sent his Messiah and allowed him to die, but did not forgive my sins, it still would have been enough. If he'd have forgave my sins, but not gave me my dream job, it still would have been enough. If he'd have gave me my dream job, but not my dream spouse, it still would have been enough. If he'd have gave me my dream spouse, but not my dream bank account, it still would have been enough. If he'd have gave me the money I wanted, but did not allow me to live as long as I wanted, it still would have been enough. And to have that concept, to remember that whatever we're going through in life, whatever we're striving for, DAYENU, it was enough. God has given us so much more than we deserve, than we need, than we could ever ask or imagine, and we forget it into the little things. I mean, you know, if he never sent Steve Jobs, you still would have been all okay without your Apple products. If he wouldn't have sent, you know, if he wouldn't have sent Magic Johnson to the Lakers and Boston would have won more championships, it still would have been okay. I know other than Joe V, no one would have been happy, but it would have been enough. And it's really important for us to connect that and to personalize it for ourselves. that no matter what we're going through, God has done enough. We can get so entitled and forget what God has done so much to bring us to where He has. God has done so much to give us everything that we're going through. And everything we're going through, on the other side of it, we're going to be amazed anyway. The Jews, no way could they have imagined for 400 years were they going to survive in the desert. There is no way 3 million people with a camp every night that had to be moved, roughly the size of Rhode Island, how would that even be possible? How would it be possible to feed 3 million people with not enough cattle or food to get compensated for it, no idea where I'm going to get my water, my food, where I'm going to sleep, where I'm going to go, we heard about some rumored land that our forefathers lived in 400 years ago, but who knows what condition it is in now. But we're going to go anyway because God has done enough. It's important for us just to connect with that. And every time we participate in the Passover Seder, we're fulfilling what Yeshua Himself commanded all His disciples. To keep Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread, as He said, do this in remembrance of me. And after the dinner, we'll actually get into the specific part that ties to the communion. But we are all very familiar with that part of it. I think I jumped ahead. I jumped ahead a little bit. But normally there'd be a ceremony of washing of hands. For time's sake, we're going to ignore that. Normally there'd be a bowl on each of the tables, and you'd wash the person's hands next to you. And it was during this that Jesus washed His disciples' feet. So instead of allowing each one to humble themselves for the person next to them, He humbled Himself for everyone and went even a step further. We've now come to the part of the meal. Couple of instructions for this. All of the plates and everything are on the far side.